It is 100 BC. The most powerful empire the world has ever seen is at its peak. Rome controls over 2 million square miles of territory, commands the most feared army in human history, and produces more wealth than any civilization before it. But if you look closely at how that wealth actually moves, something strange becomes visible. The soldiers fighting the wars are not getting rich. The farmers growing the food are not getting rich. The craftsmen building the roads, the aqueducts, the Colosseum itself, are not getting rich. The people doing all the work are staying exactly where they started. And the people who own the land those soldiers fight on, who own the mills that grind the grain, who own the ships that carry the goods, who lend the money that funds the wars, those people are getting extraordinarily, generationally, dynastically wealthy. This is not a coincidence. It is a system. And here is the part that should make you stop cold. That system did not die with Rome. It did not get dismantled by the Renaissance or the Industrial Revolution or the rise of democracy. It got refined, it got more sophisticated, it got better at hiding itself. And the wealthiest people alive today are running the exact same playbook that Roman patricians wrote 2,000 years ago. To understand it, you need to understand the difference between two groups of people that Roman society made no effort to hide: the patricians and the plebeians. The patricians were the aristocratic class, the old families, the ones whose names opened doors and whose bloodlines controlled land that had been in their possession for generations. They did not work for money in any sense that a modern person would recognize. They collected it. From rents paid by farmers who worked land the patricians owned. From interest paid by merchants who borrowed patrician capital to fund their ventures. From political influence that allowed them to shape the rules of commerce in their favor before anyone else knew the rules were changing. The plebeians were everyone else: farmers, soldiers, craftsmen, traders. People who were not poor by Roman standards. Many of them were skilled, educated, productive members of society. But they had one thing in common that kept them permanently separated from patrician wealth. They traded their time for money. Every day they worked, they earned. Every day they did not work, they did not earn. Their income was a function of their labor. And labor, as any Roman patrician could have told you, is a fundamentally limited resource. You only have so many hours. You only have so much energy. You only have so many years. The Romans even had a saying for this distinction: pecunia non olet. Money has no smell. It was attributed to the Emperor Vespasian who, when criticized for taxing the public urinals of Rome, held a coin under his son's nose and asked whether it smelled. The point was not about urine. The point was that money generated by an asset carries no trace of how it was made. It simply accumulates. It simply compounds. It simply grows while you sleep. That is the first trick. Own assets that generate income regardless of whether you are working. Not a salary, not a wage, not a fee for your time. A system that produces money independently of your personal effort. The patricians owned land. Today, the equivalent is real estate, index funds, a business that runs without you, intellectual property that earns royalties, or any other structure where money flows toward you without requiring your direct labor to generate it. Most people will never make this shift, not because they cannot, but because nobody ever showed them the difference between the two sides of the equation. Schools teach you how to be a highly skilled plebeian, how to get a better job, earn a higher salary, trade your time more efficiently. Nobody teaches you how to stop trading time entirely. Now here is the second trick, and this one is darker. The Roman emperors discovered something that every powerful ruling class since has quietly understood. You do not need to oppress people who are sufficiently entertained. You do not need to control people who are sufficiently comfortable. You just need to keep the threshold of comfort high enough that revolt feels unnecessary and low enough that accumulating real wealth feels out of reach. They called it panem et circenses, bread and circuses. Free grain distributions to keep the poor fed. Spectacular games in the Colosseum to keep them distracted. It was not generosity, it was engineering. If the population is focused on the spectacle in front of them, they are not focused on the system around them. And if they are not focused on the system, they cannot challenge it. Look at the modern version of this and tell me it does not feel familiar. cheap, processed food available at every corner, an entertainment ecosystem so vast and so algorithmically optimized that you can spend an entire lifetime consuming it without ever reaching the end. Streaming services, social media feeds designed by the most sophisticated behavioral scientists in history to keep you scrolling for one more minute, one more hour, one more evening that could have been spent building something. This is not a conspiracy. It does not need to be. The incentives of the system produce the outcome automatically. Platforms make money when you consume. Brands make money when you spend. The economy grows when you participate as a consumer. Nobody needs to coordinate a plan to keep you distracted. The plan is built into the architecture of the world you live in. The Patrician move is to recognize the circus for what it is, not to become a hermit or to abandon all entertainment, but to be conscious about the ratio. How many hours a week do you spend consuming versus how many hours do you spend building? The Patricians watched the games. They just made sure they owned the Colosseum. Now here is the third trick. The one that explains why patrician wealth did not just survive across decades but across centuries. Roman aristocratic families did not think about wealth the way a modern person thinks about a savings account. They did not measure success by what they had accumulated in their own lifetime. They measured success by what position they were passing on to the next generation. Land that would appreciate over centuries. Political relationships that would open doors for their children and grandchildren. Financial structures that collected returns indefinitely. A family name that carried credibility across generations. This is what economists today call dynastic wealth, and it is built on a principle so simple it is almost embarrassing. Compound growth is not about the rate of return. It is about the length of time the return has to run. A moderate return over 200 years produces an outcome that an extraordinary return over 20 years cannot match. The patricians understood this intuitively because they were thinking in generations, not in quarters. The modern expression of this thinking is not complicated. It is index fund investing started early and never stopped. It is real estate held long enough for compounding appreciation to do its work. It is financial literacy passed to your children not as abstract advice, but as lived behavior they grow up watching. It is the decision to plant trees whose shade you will not personally sit under. Most people never do this because the financial system they live inside is designed to make them think short-term. Monthly bills, annual bonuses, quarterly earnings reports. The entire rhythm of modern economic life is calibrated to the short term. And short-term thinking is what keeps people permanently on the plebeian side of the equation. So here is what all of this actually means for you right now. You are not living in the 21st century. You are living inside a system that is 2,000 years old. The technology has changed. The vocabulary has changed. The geography has changed. But the underlying structure of who owns assets and who sells labor, who builds systems and who works inside them, who thinks in generations and who thinks in pay periods, that structure has remained almost perfectly intact from the Roman Forum to the modern stock exchange. The patricians did not have better intelligence than the plebeians. They did not work harder. They did not get luckier. They understood three things that most people never learn. First, income from assets is categorically different from income from labor. Second, comfort and entertainment are tools that systems use to prevent people from noticing the first thing. And third, wealth compounds across time in ways that completely dwarf anything achievable within a single lifetime. You cannot change the system you were born into, but you can change which side of it you are on. Start acquiring assets, however small. Become conscious of how your attention and your time are being consumed. And start thinking about your financial decisions not in terms of this month or this year, but in terms of what position you are building toward over the next decade and beyond. The Roman Empire fell. But the trick the patricians invented never did. And if this changed the way you see the system you are living inside, subscribe. Every week we go deeper into the hidden history and psychology behind who builds wealth and why. Hit the bell so you never miss it. And leave a comment below with one asset you are going to start building this week. Not someday. This week. Let's see what you come up with.